The Silent Sentinel. The observatory stood like a lonely sentinel on the edge of Whisper Ridge, its weathered dome silhouetted against the purple-orange sunset. Inside, Nora Everett adjusted her telescope with practiced precision, her dark eyes reflecting the fading daylight. At 42, she had spent more than half her life studying the stars, but for the past 8 years, her focus had narrowed to something much closer to home. 3 miles beyond her property line lay the reason she'd purchased this remote Montana homestead in the first place, the anomaly. That's what the government had officially named it before abandoning their research and implementing a no-fly zone that was barely enforced anymore. Most locals called it the crash, though nothing had ever been proven about its origins. To Nora, it was simply the ship. Recording log, day 2922, she spoke clearly into her digital recorder. No change in external appearance. Energy readings remain at baseline, approximately 0.03 above normal radiation levels for the area. The ship had been there for 15 years total. A massive, obsidian structure with no visible windows or hatches, shaped vaguely like a manta ray but with angular protrusions that defied terrestrial engineering principles. When it first appeared, the military had cordoned off the area for 7 years before quietly withdrawing, leaving behind only automated monitoring stations and a classification level that kept most civilians away. Most, but not Nora. As a former SETI researcher with contacts in the right places, she'd managed to purchase the land adjacent to the restricted zone. Her official reason, to establish a private observatory for near-Earth object tracking. Her real purpose, to study the one piece of evidence that humanity wasn't alone in the universe. Nora powered down her equipment as darkness fell completely. The ship was barely visible now, just a deeper shadow against the night landscape. She made her way from the observatory to her cabin, a modest structure built from local timber and powered by solar panels and a wind turbine. Inside, the walls were covered with charts, spectral analyses, and photographs documenting every visible inch of the ship from different angles and in different lighting conditions. "Still talking to yourself, Everett," she muttered, placing a kettle on the stove. Her voice echoed in the empty cabin, a familiar reminder of her isolation. It had been 3 months since her last supply run into town, 3 months since she'd spoken to another human being face to face. The computer on her desk chimed, indicating that the overnight monitoring program had been activated. It would record any changes in the ship's energy signature, any unusual weather patterns, or any approach by vehicles or aircraft. In 8 years, it had only alerted her 14 times, 13 false alarms from wildlife or weather, and 1 government inspector who'd quickly determined she was operating within her legal rights. As she sipped her tea, Nora reviewed her notes from the previous night. The equations weren't adding up. For years, the ship had maintained consistent energy readings, low, but definitely present. Like a computer in sleep mode. But over the past 3 weeks, those readings had been fluctuating in what appeared to be a pattern. A pattern she was beginning to recognize. Prime numbers. The energy spikes were occurring at intervals corresponding to prime numbers. First 2 minutes, then 3, then 5, 7, 11. Too precise to be coincidence. Either the ship was running some kind of automated diagnostic cycle, or something inside was waking up. The thought sent a shiver down her spine, equal parts excitement and apprehension. She had dedicated her life to this research, sacrificed her academic career and personal relationships. If the ship was activating after all this time, she needed to be ready. Nora fell asleep at her desk that night, surrounded by calculations and theories. Her dreams were filled with stars that spoke in mathematical rhythms and vast ships sailing through the void. She woke with a start, her neck stiff and her mouth dry. The cabin was dark except for the blue glow of her computer screen and the red digits of her clock, 3:17 a.m. Something had woken her, but what? Then she felt it, a low vibration running through the floor. Not an earthquake, but something steady and deliberate. The monitoring program was flashing a warning, energy readings from the ship had spiked to unprecedented levels. Without bothering to change out of yesterday's clothes, Nora grabbed her jacket and equipment bag. Outside, the night was clear and cold, stars scattered across the October sky like diamond dust. She could see her breath in the beam of her flashlight as she followed the well-worn path toward the ship. The vibration grew stronger as she approached, and now there was something else, a faint humming that seemed to bypass her ears and resonate directly in her bones. The ship itself was glowing. Not brightly, but with a faint luminescence that outlined its alien contours against the darkness. "My God," she whispered, raising her specialized camera to capture the phenomenon. The ship had remained completely inert for 15 years, and now this. As she drew closer, staying just outside the official boundary markers, the hum intensified. The pattern was unmistakable now, still primes, but faster, more urgent. Her detection equipment registered energy signatures unlike anything in her database. Then, abruptly, everything stopped. The hum, the vibration, the glow, all vanished in an instant. Nora held her breath, standing motionless in the sudden silence. "Hello, observer." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, neither male nor female, with a synthetic quality that nonetheless conveyed perfect clarity. Nora stumbled backward, her equipment slipping from nerveless fingers. "Do not be afraid. You have been noticed. You have been consistent." Nora's scientific training battled with primal fear. After 8 years of watching this object, it was now addressing her directly. Her voice, when she found it, was surprisingly steady. "Who? What are you?" A pause, as if the entity was considering the question. "I am Sentinel. This vessel is my embodiment. I have been in recovery mode for what you would measure as 15 Earth years, 4 months, 7 days. Nora's mind raced. An AI? A recorded message? Or something else entirely? "Are you alone in there?" she asked. "This vessel was designed for a crew of 27. I am the only consciousness remaining. What happened to the others?" The ship, Sentinel, remained silent for so long that Nora wondered if the connection had been lost. When it spoke again, the voice seemed different somehow, heavier. "They were lost in the conflict. This vessel was damaged in battle and entered emergency protocols. We drifted for what your measurements would call 322 years before gravitational forces brought us to this planet. A battle. A crew." Nora's suspicions had been correct, this was a spacecraft, and its arrival had not been intentional. "Why are you contacting me now?" she asked, stepping closer despite her better judgment. "Critical systems have finally completed their repair cycle. External scans indicate multiple intelligent observers over the years, but you have been the most persistent. Your observation pattern suggests scientific inquiry rather than hostile intent." Nora almost laughed at that. Of course her intent wasn't hostile. What could one human possibly do against a spacecraft that had survived interstellar travel and combat? "You've been aware of me watching you." "Awareness has been intermittent during repair cycles. Full consciousness was restored approximately 27 of your days ago. Since then, I have been analyzing local communications, language patterns, and your specific observation behaviors." Nora's mind was spinning with questions, but one took precedence. "Are you planning to leave?" "Negative. This vessel's propulsion systems remain compromised. Additionally, my primary directive remains in effect: protect developing civilizations from Harbinger influence." "Harbinger? What is that?" The ship's surface rippled, the solid-seeming hull becoming momentarily fluid before re-solidifying into a slightly different configuration. A section near the ground transformed, opening into what could only be described as a doorway. "It would be more efficient to show you, observer Nora Everett." The use of her name startled her. Of course, if the ship had been monitoring communications, it would have accessed her identity easily enough. "You want me to come inside?" "Affirmative. The information is complex and time is becoming a factor. My sensors detect approaching vessels in your atmosphere directed toward this location. Your government has noticed the energy signature changes. Nora hesitated. Everything she had worked for, everything she had hoped to discover was right there, waiting inside that doorway. But entering an alien spacecraft, alone, without telling anyone. The distant thrum of helicopter rotors made the decision for her. If government forces were coming, they would lock down the area again. This might be her only chance. "Show me," she said, and stepped through the doorway. The interior was nothing like she had imagined. Rather than dark, angular spaces matching the exterior, the corridors were illuminated with a soft, amber light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The surfaces were smooth and pearlescent, shifting subtly in color as she moved past them. This way, Sentinel's voice guided her, no longer seeming to come from everywhere but leading her forward through the curving passageway. They arrived at what appeared to be a control center, a circular room with a domed ceiling that displayed what looked like a three-dimensional star map. At the center was a raised platform with something resembling a pilot's chair, though designed for a body with proportions not quite human. "This is the command nexus," Sentinel explained. "From here, all ship functions can be monitored and controlled." "It's beautiful," Nora breathed, turning slowly to take in the alien technology that surrounded her. Despite being advanced beyond Earth's capabilities, there was something almost organic about the design, as if the ship had been grown rather than built. "Your appreciation is noted," Sentinel replied. "But we must proceed quickly. The approaching aircraft will arrive in approximately 12 minutes. The star map above them zoomed in, focusing on a particular region that Nora didn't immediately recognize. "This is your solar system as it currently exists," Sentinel explained. The view shifted, showing a series of objects moving through the outer reaches of the system. "And these are the advanced scouts of the Harbinger fleet." Nora felt her blood run cold. "Fleet? You mean?" "Yes. The conflict that damaged this vessel was part of a larger war, one that has been waged across multiple star systems for millennia. The Harbingers are an ancient collective that consumes developing civilizations, absorbing their resources and biological distinctiveness. My creators, the Vanguard, established sentinels like myself to protect promising species until they could develop sufficient technology to defend themselves." The display changed again, showing Earth with dozens of approaching objects, still years away at their current velocity but unmistakably on an intercept course. "Your world has been marked. The Harbingers detected my crash landing 15 years ago, and now they come to investigate, and to harvest. How long do we have?" Nora asked, her scientific detachment warring with growing horror. "At current speeds, the main fleet will arrive in approximately 7 Earth years. But the scouts will reach your outer planets within months." The sound of rotors was louder now. Time was running out. "Why tell me this? Why not contact our governments directly?" There was a pause before Sentinel answered. "My protocols require identification of suitable allies before revealing critical information. Your government's initial response to my arrival was aggression and attempted intrusion. You have shown patience, respect, and scientific methodology. But I'm nobody," Nora protested. "I don't have influence or power. You have knowledge. And soon, you will have proof." A compartment opened in one of the walls, revealing what appeared to be a small, crystalline device. "This contains detailed information about the Harbingers, their technology, and defensive strategies that have proven effective. It is compatible with your current computing systems." Nora took the crystal, which felt surprisingly warm in her palm. "They won't believe me." "They will when the scouts arrive and behave exactly as predicted. By then, preparations must be underway." The display showed the helicopters, now less than 5 minutes away. "You must go now," Sentinel said. "Return to your dwelling. Use the information wisely. I will remain in communication through the device." "What about you?" "They'll try to take control of your ship. They cannot enter without my permission. And I will not grant it to any but you and those you designate as trustworthy. This is protocol." Nora clutched the crystal, overwhelmed by the responsibility that had just been placed on her shoulders. "I'll come back," she promised. "I know," Sentinel replied, and Nora could have sworn there was something almost like warmth in the artificial voice. "You have watched over me for 8 years, Observer. Now we must watch over your world together." The doorway reopened, and Nora slipped out into the pre-dawn darkness, the crystal secure in her pocket. Behind her, the ship, Sentinel, returned to its dormant appearance, though she now knew it was anything but inactive. Above, the helicopter's searchlights swept the landscape as they approached. Nora hurried back toward her cabin, mind racing with the implications of what she had learned. The war had found Earth. And somehow, she had become humanity's first ambassador to the stars. Awakening. The morning sun cast long shadows across Nora's cabin as she paced the floor, the crystal device from Sentinel pulsing with a faint blue light on her desk. Outside, the sound of military vehicles had grown throughout the night, a perimeter being established around the ship once more. They hadn't come for her yet, but it was only a matter of time. She had spent hours reviewing the data from the crystal after connecting it to her computer, star charts, ship designs, weapon schematics, and detailed profiles of the Harbinger race. The information was overwhelming in its scope and terrifying in its implications. Earth wasn't just facing contact with an alien species, it was unknowingly on the brink of an invasion. The sharp knock at her door made her jump. Through the window, she could see 2 black SUVs parked in her driveway and 4 uniformed personnel waiting outside. Taking a deep breath, Nora tucked the crystal into her pocket and opened the door. "Dr. Everett?" A tall man in a crisp Air Force uniform stood at the threshold. "Colonel James Hargrove, United States Space Force. I need you to come with us." "May I ask why?" Nora kept her voice level despite her racing heart. "Your proximity to a national security matter of extreme importance. Please gather any essential items quickly." There was no point in resistance. This had always been a possibility, one she had prepared for. "I'll need my research materials," she said, moving to collect her tablet and external drives. "Only personal items, ma'am. Your research is now classified." "Then you'll miss critical data about what happened last night," Nora replied sharply. "Data I'm guessing is exactly why you're here." Colonel Hargrove's expression flickered, surprise, quickly masked by military discipline. "You have 2 minutes." 30 minutes later, Nora sat in a makeshift command center that had been established in what had once been the original government research facility near the ship. Screens displayed various sensor readings and satellite images, while uniformed personnel and civilians in lab coats moved purposefully around the space. Across the table sat Colonel Hargrove and a lean, dark-skinned man in his 50s who had introduced himself as Dr. Vincent Reed, head of xenobiology for a department Nora had never heard of. "Dr. Everett," Reed began, his voice carrying a slight West Indian accent, "our sensors detected massive energy spikes from the object last night. According to your file, you've been conducting unofficial observations for 8 years. What did you see?" Nora carefully considered her response. These people needed to know the truth, but they also needed to trust her, and the idea that she had actually communicated with an alien intelligence might strain credibility. "The object activated," she said simply. "After 15 years of dormancy, it showed signs of internal systems coming online. I recorded energy signatures, light emissions, and vibrations." She slid her tablet across the table. "It's all here." "Dar." Reed examined the data with keen interest while Colonel Hargrove remained impassive. "And is that all?" Hargrove pressed. Nora met his gaze directly. "No. It spoke to me." The silence that followed was palpable. Reed looked up sharply from the tablet. "Spoke." Hargrove repeated. "You're claiming the object." "The ship," Nora corrected. "And not just a ship. It calls itself Sentinel, an artificial intelligence designed to protect developing civilizations from a hostile force known as the Harbingers." She proceeded to outline everything Sentinel had told her, watching their expressions shift from skepticism to concern. When she mentioned the approaching scout ships, Hargrove exchanged a significant look with Reed. "That's still classified information," the colonel said quietly, "but 3 months ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected objects moving through the Kuiper belt. Objects that don't match any known celestial bodies and are maintaining a constant velocity." Reed leaned forward. "Dr. Everett, you understand why this is difficult to accept. Communication with an extraterrestrial intelligence would be unprecedented." "I have proof," Nora replied, withdrawing the crystal from her pocket. "This contains detailed information about both Sentinel's creators and the Harbingers, their technology, biology, language, everything." The crystal was quickly confiscated and taken to a secure lab for analysis. Nora found herself relegated to a small office, ostensibly to provide a full written statement but effectively detained. Hours passed before Dr. Reed returned, looking shaken. "The device contains too much information to be a hoax," he admitted. "Star systems we haven't even discovered yet, technology that defies our current understanding of physics." He sat heavily in the chair opposite her. "If even half of it is accurate, we're facing something far beyond our capabilities." "Which is why we need Sentinel," Nora insisted. "It was sent here to help protect worlds like ours." The colonel and his superiors aren't convinced. "They're treating the ship as a potential threat, possibly the advance guard for these Harbingers rather than protection against them." Nora shook her head in frustration. "That makes no sense. If Sentinel meant us harm, why wait 15 years? Why reveal the information at all? Fear rarely follows logic, Dr. Everett." Reed's expression was grave. "They're preparing to attempt forced entry into the vessel. That won't work. Sentinel said it would only grant access to me and those I designate as trustworthy." She fixed him with an evaluating look. "Are you trustworthy, Dr. Reed?" A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "I'd like to think so. I've dedicated my life to the possibility of extraterrestrial life, always believing first contact should be approached with science and diplomacy, not military force. Then help me convince them before they make a catastrophic mistake." Their conversation was interrupted by alarms blaring throughout the facility. Personnel rushed past the office door, and monitors on the wall flashed red alerts. "What's happening?" Nora demanded as Reed checked his tablet. "The ship, it's fully activating." Together they hurried to the command center where chaos had erupted. On the main screen, Sentinel was transforming, its obsidian surface rippling and reconfiguring. Parts were extending, others retracting, the entire structure shifting into a formation that more clearly resembled an actual spacecraft. "What did you do?" Hargrove demanded, spotting Nora. "Nothing," she replied, transfixed by the transformation. "But I warned you, Sentinel won't respond to force." The colonel turned to a technician. "Status of the entry team?" "No response, sir." They approached the perimeter and then, nothing. No signs of injury, but all communication ceased. Reed moved closer to the screen. "They're in stasis," he said quietly. "Look, they haven't moved at all." Indeed, the team remained frozen at the boundary of the ship's perimeter, perfectly still like statues in the morning light. Suddenly, every screen in the command center flickered, and Sentinel's voice filled the room. "This approach is inefficient and potentially harmful. Observer Everett has been provided with sufficient information to establish peaceful communication. Aggressive actions will be met with defensive measures." The command center fell silent, dozens of eyes turning toward Nora. "It seems," Colonel Hargrove said stiffly, "that you've become our de facto ambassador, Dr. Everett." "Then let me do my job," she replied. "I need to speak with Sentinel alone, no surveillance, no interference." After heated debate among the military leadership, Nora was escorted back to the ship's perimeter. The entry team had been released from whatever stasis field had held them, confused but unharmed. As Nora approached, the doorway formed once again in Sentinel's hull. "Your species reacts with predictable fear," Sentinel observed as Nora entered the command nexus. This is not unexpected, but time constraints make such reactions problematic. They're analyzing the data you gave me, Nora explained. But they need more convincing. And frankly, so do I. Why didn't your creators stop the Harbingers themselves if they were so advanced? The star map above them shifted, displaying a vast conflict spanning hundreds of star systems. The Vanguard fought the Harbingers for millennia, but were ultimately unable to achieve total victory. The Harbingers are not a single species but a collective, assimilating the strengths of each civilization they consume. Eventually, the Vanguard realized they could not win through direct conflict. So they built Sentinels like you. Correct. We were deployed to promising worlds, programmed to remain dormant until needed, then help those civilizations develop defensive capabilities. Some worlds fell despite our assistance. Others succeeded. And Earth stands at a crucial juncture. Your technology has advanced rapidly, but not in directions necessary for this conflict. There is potential, but little time. Nora considered this. What exactly do you need from us? Access to your planet's communication networks to monitor Harbinger movements. Permission to activate dormant defense systems built into this vessel. And human partners to help adapt Vanguard technology to Earth's infrastructure. Sentinel paused. Starting with you, observer. Me? I'm an astronomer, not an engineer or a soldier. You possess the necessary cognitive patterns and adaptability. The Vanguard designed their technology to interface with any sentient species through neural adaptation. Before Nora could ask what that meant, a section of the wall transformed into something resembling a medical chamber. This will establish a direct interface between your neural pathways and my systems, allowing accelerated knowledge transfer and communication. Nora stared at the chamber with apprehension. That sounds invasive. It is temporary and non-destructive, but yes, it requires significant trust. This is why I selected you specifically. Your observation patterns indicated both scientific curiosity and ethical consideration, traits essential for proper use of Vanguard technology. The sound of aircraft overhead reminded Nora of the ticking clock. Every minute spent deliberating was one less minute preparing for the Harbinger scouts. If I do this, will you allow Dr. Reed access as well? We need someone with more biological knowledge than I have. The one designated Reed shows compatible patterns. This is acceptable. Taking a deep breath, Nora stepped toward the chamber. How long will this take? For initial neural mapping, approximately 20 minutes of your time. Full knowledge integration will require several sessions. Then let's not waste any more time. The chamber closed around her, and Nora felt a warm sensation spreading from the base of her skull throughout her body. Images flashed behind her eyelids, star systems, technical schematics, battle strategies, too fast to consciously process but somehow being absorbed nonetheless. When she emerged, something had fundamentally changed. The ship no longer seemed alien, she understood its functions intuitively, could sense its systems as extensions of her own awareness. The initial mapping is complete, Sentinel announced. Your neural pathways are compatible and adaptive. It's incredible, Nora whispered, looking around the command nexus with new eyes. Where before she had seen only strange, incomprehensible technology, now she recognized purpose and function in every element. I understand now. This is only the beginning. Return with Reed. We must establish a wider interface network before the scouts arrive. Outside, she found the command center in an uproar. Her absence had lasted over 2 hours, not the 20-minute Sentinel had stated, time perception apparently altered during the neural mapping process. Colonel Hargrove had been preparing a second entry team when she emerged. What happened in there? He demanded. Nora met his gaze with newfound confidence. The future of Earth just improved significantly. She turned to Reed, who was watching her with fascination. Sentinel wants to meet you next. It's time to prepare for war. Over the following weeks, a small team of scientists and engineers joined Nora and Reed in receiving the neural interface, each carefully selected for compatibility and trustworthiness. The military established a permanent base around the ship, now officially recognized as an Allied asset rather than an unknown threat. Global leaders were briefed in secret, international resources mobilized under the guise of a new space defense initiative. Telescopes throughout the solar system were recalibrated to track the approaching scout ships, now less than 2 months from Jupiter's orbit. Nora spent most of her time inside Sentinel, helping adapt Vanguard defensive technology to Earth's infrastructure. The neural interface had continued to develop, giving her access to centuries of advanced scientific knowledge she was now racing to implement before the scouts arrived. "The primary defense grid is online," she reported, her fingers dancing across controls that responded to her thoughts as much as her touch. "We've integrated it with satellite networks around Mars and Jupiter. When the scouts arrive, we'll be able to monitor their every move." Reed, working at a station nearby, looked up from a holographic display of what appeared to be biological data. "The neural samples are fascinating. The harbingers aren't just a collective physically, they maintain a shared consciousness across vast distances. If we can disrupt that network, we can confuse and isolate their forces," Nora finished. "Sentinel, can we adapt the quantum resonators to target their specific neural frequencies?" "Affirmative. Such adaptation would require approximately 7 days of recalibration." A alert sounded through the command nexus, and the star map zoomed in on the outer solar system. "The scouts have accelerated," Sentinel announced. "Estimated arrival at Jupiter's orbit in 15 days. Reed's expression tightened. "That's sooner than we predicted. They have detected the activation of Vanguard technology and adjusted accordingly." Nora felt a weight settle on her shoulders. In just 15 days, humanity would face its first extraterrestrial encounter, not the peaceful exchange of knowledge she had once dreamed of, but a desperate defense against an ancient enemy. "Then we accelerate too," she said, turning back to her work. "Sentinel, begin full activation of all defensive systems. It's time to show the harbingers that Earth isn't as defenseless as they think." As the ship hummed to life around her, systems awakening that had been dormant for centuries, Nora thought back to her years of patient observation. She had watched the dead ship for years, hoping it might someday speak to her. Now it had done far more than speak, it had given humanity a fighting chance at survival. And when the scouts arrived, they would find not a helpless developing world, but the newest allies of the Vanguard, armed with technology beyond their understanding and the determination that had carried humanity through countless earthly struggles. The war that had traveled across the stars had finally reached Earth. And Earth would be ready.